Dear students, Module 24. Dear students, Module 24, Multifactorial Inheritance and the Mitochondrial Disease. The main objectives of this episode are to know about the multifactorial inheritance and the complex diseases, to understand about the diabetes mellitus that shows the complex trait, to explain about the mitochondrial inheritance, to know about the diseases caused by the mitochondrial defects, to know about the diseases that show the matrilineal inheritance pattern. Introduction. Any human trait requires the performance of many genes and environmental factors. The few single characters are said to depend on the particular genotype at the single gene locus. These characters expressed by the only pair of the gene are called as the Mendelian characters. Pedigree analysis can give different patterns of inheritance for the Mendelian traits. There are thousands of Mendelian traits found in humans. Apart from the single gene characters, there are many characters which can be associated with many genes at a different locus. For any DNA variants, the gene affected is the primary regions and is the more likely the Mendelian. But in case of protein level of variants, like functions of proteins can depend on more than one gene locus. This can be because of the post-translational modifications. Some of the defects seen in the early age of birth as congenital heart diseases result from the defects in many factors. Hence, these are under multifactorial defects. The characters depending on many genes at different loci are known as the non-Mendelian characters. They can also be termed as the multifactorial, where it states that the many factors for a single defect. Similarly, diseases can also occur by the abnormal functions of the organelle called mitochondria. It has its DNA, and mitochondria are very commonly known as the powerhouse of the cell. The diseases can occur by the deformed mitochondrial functions, and the spontaneous mutation can cause it. Each cell, tissue and organ needs energy for their function. The mitochondria mainly gives this energy in each cell. When it gets affected, multiple organs of the body get affected. Hence, in this episode, the following aspects are going to be emphasized. A. Multifactorial characters. B. The inheritance patterns of multifactorial disease. C. Diabetes mellitus complex trait. D. Mitochondrial inheritance. E. Mitochondrial disease. A. Multifactorial characters. Geneticists worked on the different variations, characters in parents and resemblance with children in a family. Francis Galton worked on the physical attributes such as height, breathing rate, color discrimination, strength, etc. in a family and their correlations with their relatives. They also studied the inheritance of those characters and investigated by applying many statistics. In the case of these continuous quantitative characters, the pedigree analysis cannot be done. These controversies continued till 1918 until the demonstration of R. A. Fisher about the characters which are ruled by the many independent Mendelian factors. It was termed as the polygenic characters. Polygenic characters are the characters which are associated with many genes and are the continuous variation occur in generations. They inherit in a non-Mendelian fashion. Many polygenic traits get influenced by the other external factors along with the polygenes. External factors can be environment, drug, etc. Hence, it is called as the multifactorial inheritance of the polygenic traits. Polygenic traits include height, behavior and other disease conditions like club foot formation, cleft lip, diabetes mellitus, hydrocephalus, that is the accumulation of water in the brain, and this fluid pressure will cause the brain damage and some allergies. In most of the cases of multifactorial conditions, the number of genes involved is not precisely known. Inheritance of multifactorial traits, which are also called polygenic inheritance. The multifactorial diseases will not show Mendelian patterns of inheritance. Environmental factors will influence the disease and they can increase or decrease the risk for that disease. These diseases can affect any one gender more often than another gender. It will not show any sex limited trait. The relatives of the affected individuals are more susceptible to getting those traits. Some of the diseases will fall into a discrete conditions and they are discontinuous. Some other diseases will show a continuous development of the phenotype in the patterns of gradient and are ongoing characters. In some cases, the phenotype of discontinuous character resembles the phenotypes of continuous variation. This shows that continuous variation will have some threshold in which the disease can show their frequency of development. Infection can occur and develop in a state of higher limit. If the variation is limited and not reached up to a threshold point, then the disease will not develop. They will be in a discontinuous condition. The multifactorial disease will show their discontinuous variation. In case of cleft lip and cleft palate, both genetics and environmental factors will play an essential role in the development of the phenotype. These traits will develop at birth. The children born with this defect will not show the affected parents and any other family history of being affected. Parents can contribute to this defect by some non-functional genes. Hence, it shows that the parents who do not show any variation, that will not reach the threshold point and they will not develop the trait. The affected individual will have the factors which are contributing to this trait will reach the threshold point. There are many diseases which show the multifactorial condition. They include multiple sclerosis, diabetes mellitus, cancer and asthma, etc. The copy number variations, epistatic changes and several environmental factors will contribute to the multifactorial diseases. There are many methods for studying common multifactorial disease. One such way is the genome-wide association study, which helps in the identification of the common allele which are responsible for the complex disorders. C. Diabetes mellitus, a complex trait. Diabetes mellitus is a common multifactorial disorder where the body cannot produce enough amount of insulin. The carbohydrates from the food will get metabolized to give glucose and other molecules. This glucose will make up by the insulin and it will maintain the glucose level in the blood. When there is no production of insulin takes place, then there will be problems in the metabolism of carbohydrates, lipids and proteins. The lack of insulin will increase the amount of glucose in the blood and tissues. Increased blood glucose level results in the diabetes mellitus. Several cases of this condition can also affect another organ like a kidney. The excess amount of glucose remains in the blood as well in the tissues. These glucose molecules will enter into the kidney and they form the glycoproteins. The more amount of these proteins results in the condition called proteinuria. It also affects the kidney functions. Insulin is produced by an organ called the pancreas. Notably, the beta cells present in this organ are instructed to produce insulin and release them to the bloodstream. When we eat food for energy, it contains more amount of carbohydrates. Intake of food will automatically increase the blood glucose level. The insulin will play a role in that situation. Insulin released into the bloodstream will make use of the excess glucose from the blood, and they help in the storage of that glucose in the form of energy in the liver. It helps during the low blood glucose level. Fasting blood sugar is measured after fasting for at least 8 hours. This is done to determine how much glucose is in the blood, which is a standard test for diabetes. The normal individual will have a blood sugar level of 70 to 100 milligrams per dl in fasting, and after 2 hours of post meal, the blood sugar level will be less than 140 mg per dl in the normal individual. If the person is diabetes, then his blood sugar level in fasting will be above 126 milligrams per dl, and after 2 hours of post meal blood sugar level will be more than 200 mg per dl. Another blood test called HbA1c test, which is a blood test that provides average level of blood glucose over the first 3 months. This is called glycosylated hemoglobin. This is used to estimate the blood glucose level from the last 3 months. In normal individual, HbA1c of less than 6.5, and if this is more, then the condition is considered as diabetes. There are 2 main types of diabetes. They are type 1 diabetes, insulin dependent diabetes; type 2 diabetes, non-insulin dependent diabetes. Type 1 diabetes occurs in childhood, hence it is also termed as the juvenile form. This type will affect the children at a very young age. There is a high risk of other children in the family that gets affected by this condition. Since this type as insulin dependent diabetes, it requires the insulin intake for survival. Type 2 diabetes is a common form of diabetes mellitus. This condition will occur in the old ages instead of happening at the young age. Hence, this type can also be termed as the late onset type or the adult onset type. In this condition, the pancreas can produce a small amount of insulin which is not enough for the proper functions. In some conditions, the other cells of the body will develop into a resistance for the intake of insulin. Currently, with the adults, some teenage children who are more obese and are in overweight condition can develop type 2 diabetes. Some obese people will show resistance to insulin. Diabetes mellitus has no cure, and they can only be prevented in daily life. People with diabetes are often guided to eat a proper diet which has more fibers and to do exercises which can reduce the fat formation. The affected people are more prone to infections and healing of the wound takes many days. There is also the availability of insulin which can be injected into the diabetic people. Some other medication can be given for the proper functioning of the body system. Regular checkups for the blood sugar level can be done to keep the glucose level in control. People can control diabetes by avoiding the intake of food which has more carbohydrates. Regular exercise will keep the body healthy and helps in proper functioning. Mitochondrial inheritance. Mitochondria are the membrane-bound organelles found in eukaryotic cells. They produce the energy in each cell in the form of adenosine triphosphate ATP. These are the small organelles whose size ranges from 0.5 to 10 micrometer. Along with the production of ATP, they can also store the signaling molecules like calcium, which helps in the growth and development. The number of these organelles varies in each cell in the eukaryotic system. Blood cells do not contain mitochondria. These organelles present only in the cells which have the true nucleus. Other tissues like muscle and liver cells consists of hundreds of mitochondria where it produces more ATP for their function. Mitochondria has its DNA which codes for proteins. Human genetic diseases can be caused by mutations in the mitochondrial DNA, that is mtDNA. mtDNA has higher replication rate and is more error prone. This can be one of the reasons for the mutations to occur. The inheritance of mitochondrial disease is matrilineal. None of the father can transmit the trait to his children. During the process of fertilization, the egg cells will keep many mitochondrial DNA copies and it will be inherited to the children through mother. In a normal individual without any disease, the several copies of mtDNA will be identical, or in some other case full copies of the mtDNA can be in mutant forms. This condition is termed as the homoplasmy, when the mutations occur in some copies of mitochondrial DNA in a cell and other copies remain normal. Both the mutant and the normal copies will exist together in a cell. This condition is termed as the heteroplasmy. Heteroplasmy can be a feature of getting mitochondrial coded disease. The affected mother can transfer the trait to all her children. The affected daughters will again transmit the trait to the next generation, but not the affected sons. It has been found that more the mutant copies of the mtDNA, more the severity of the disease. mitochondrial disease. The mitochondrion has its genetic material and other essential enzymes which can convert the nutrients of the food into byproducts. The mitochondria can use these byproducts for the production of energy. The electron transport chain is another form of producing energy in the inner membrane of the mitochondria. There is protein complexes built on the membrane, and high energy electrons from the food or another source will pass along the protein complexes on the membrane. There will be electron carriers like NAD plus, which can take up 2 electrons and a proton and become NADH. The transfer of electrons will release energy which is used for the pumping of protons across the membrane. This will create the proton gradient across the membrane. This gradient will serve as a stored energy to do work. ATP synthase will help to catalyze the production of ATP from ADP and PI. Mitochondrial DNA consists of 37 genes, and the total size of the genome is 16,568 base pairs. These 37 genes will code for 2 rRNAs, 22 tRNAs and 13 proteins. These proteins are the sub-unit of enzymes that helps in oxidative phosphorylation in the electron transport system. The mitochondrial disease occur when all these functions of the mitochondria get affected. Some organs of the body such as the heart, muscles and lungs require more amounts of energy get affected more often. Mitochondrial disease get in different individuals. Some of the symptoms of the mitochondrial disease include developmental problems, seizures, strokes, difficult to walk and other complications. Since this affects differently in each individual, they are challenging to diagnose. Some mutations can cause different abnormalities. Different mutations in mtDNA and nuclear DNA can result in the same condition of the disease. Some of the mitochondrial disease can affect single organs and in most of the cases will affect the multiple organs. Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy LHON. This is a rare condition which mainly affects the central vision. This condition can develop in men and women at any age of development. Males are more severely affected than females. The vision loss can get more severe in men at a young age. LHON is a genetic disorder transferred by the mother. Men cannot pass any trait to their children, whereas woman carrying the disease will give to all her children. This condition will affect energy productions in the cells. This can lead to the damage and finally lead to the death of the optic nerve cells. Initially, the symptom starts with blur vision of one eye, later affects both the eyes. With the loss of central vision, the affected individual find difficulties in reading, recognizing things, and in other tasks. Lion conditions will also show some other symptoms like tremors, that is shaking movement of the limbs, headaches in movements, and problems with heartbeat formation. Therefore, this condition is termed as LHON plus. The lion can be caused by the affected MTND1, MTND4, MTND4L or MTND6 gene. Each of these genes will encode for the protein responsible for the proper functioning of the mitochondria. These proteins will make the part of the subunits of enzyme complexes which play a role in the production of energy by converting the oxygen and other sugar molecules from the diet. The defects in these genes will result in the abnormal functions of the mitochondria and will finally lead to the death of optic nerve cells. In conclusion, the conditions for the multifactorial inheritance are the genes and the environment. Diabetes mellitus is another multifactorial condition that affects other organs of the body, which is more common in current days. The mitochondrial disease are very few known in most of the population across the world. Thank you.